Greetings, everybody. Thank you for attending and being here at the City of Yucaipa City Council meeting, March 14th at 6 p.m. At this time, I'd like to ask Captain Williams to lead us in the pledge.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Captain. Jennifer, will you please call roll?
Councilmember Bogue.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Councilmember Thorpe.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beaver.
Here.
Mayor Avila.
Here. All righty, Ray, are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No changes to the agenda, Mr. Mayor, in terms of order. We did hand out clarifications, revisions to items number 5, 6, and 9. Those are available at the back of the room and available to you as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Special presentations. We have a special presentation for a letter to President Biden regarding the invasion of Ukraine. Is that true? And who will be given that?
That is the direction that we received from City Council from the last meeting. And Council just needs to take a motion and a second and approve the letter that all have reviewed. It's consistent with Congressman Olbernolte's post on his website as well.
Very well. If the letter's not too long, Ray, do you mind reading it? If it's handy.
I actually do not have it with
Okay.
my packet.
Is there a motion to approve sending the letter?
I make a motion that we approve the letter and send it.
I'll second his motion.
All righty, if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. We'll move on to employee introduction, and I believe that'll be Miss Mary Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. It is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Elise Campbell, our new Community Services Coordinator. Elise joined the city in August of 2021 and is assigned to our Community Services Department. She is responsible for multiple divisions at the Yucaipa Performing Arts Center, including part-time staff, rentals, and contract classes. Elise is also coordinating and assisting with special events, including Extravaganza, Music and Arts Festival, Movies in the Park, Concerts in the Park, 4th of July, Autumn Fest, Make a Difference Day, Winter Fest, and our Uptown Ice Rink. I am very, very proud of Elise's ability to come from a different professional field and bring her creative ideas to our city, including a new rental process and paperwork for the YPAC. Her greatest accomplishments so far have been the planning and execution of the Autumn Fest Touch-a-Truck event, as well as the Uptown Ice Rink. Elise's greatest strengths are her planning and organization. Her experience in event planning and rental coordinating in her previous job have helped her organize and strengthen our processes at the YPAC. She can take a simple idea, plan out the details, weigh the pros and cons, and help us bring those events to life. Elise's hobbies include playing golf, taking spin classes, going on hikes, and traveling. Growing up, she also played ice hockey and softball. Elise comes from a close-knit family, including 4 siblings, 2 loving parents, 2 brothers-in-law, 1 sister-in-law, and 2 nieces. And so now I would like to give Elise an opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you, Mary. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this city. You know, as a resident here and have attended many of the events in the past and festivals, being on the other side of the table now and helping plan them, really is a dream come true, sharing my thoughts and ideas and just being a part of this amazing team and amazing department. I really can't say enough and how proud I am to be here and help build this city to make it more wonderful than it already is.
Well, thank you for joining our team.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments of Ms. Campbell?
That was an impressive list of responsibilities.
Yes,
I'm pleased that one of your strengths is organization, because I was lost listening to that. That was very impressive. Thank you for joining the team. Yucaipa is what it is, and mostly because of our amazing citizens and our community itself. But we are a community, not a city, because of the extraordinary work that our city staff puts in to make sure that we have the community events that make us just such an attractive city in the Empire. So thank you for your very large part in that.
You're welcome, no problem.
All right, at this time, if you don't mind, we'd like to have our picture taken with you in front of our dais.
As you make your way down, I wanted to say a fun fact about Elise is that she used to work for the city as a part-time staff. She worked at the community center and one of those key employees that help execute all the programs and services that community services offers. So she loved it so much, she came back full-time.
One, two,
Okay, this is the time now for public comment. I'd like to say if there's any speakers, please fill out the forms over there that's located by the entrance and pass them to the city clerk. You may speak now on any public item that's not on the agenda, or if you wish to speak on the agenda item, just simply indicate it on your speaker slip, and we'll call you up when that agenda item calls for public comment. Right now, I have 3 speakers. Are there any other requests to speak? Madam City Clerk?
No, only the 3 before you tonight.
Okay. First out of the gate, Dr. Lynette Thomas. Every speaker has 3 minutes. And if you don't mind, repeat your name, make sure I say it properly, and add your address too.
Lynette Thomas, 35242 Persimmon Avenue. I am a, Mayor Avia and council members. I mentioned the fact that I am a doctor of education, and I wanted to bring that up because my dissertation at USC was on literacy and the influence of informed leaders on the success of literacy. And I think that is what we're talking about tonight with this group. I'd like to talk about literacy and our need, and in my view, for a new library from the viewpoint of several groups. The first being preschoolers. Young children who are read to daily can enter kindergarten having heard 1.4 million words by the time they enter kindergarten. Children who are not read to do not enter with that number of words. Where do you get more words? From books, from a library. Second group, school-age children. In 2019, an assessment found that only 32% of California fourth graders read at a proficient or higher level. Eighth graders, even lower, both groups below the national average. Where can our students get more literacy, more reading, more talking about books? At the library. Adults with limited literacy skills. It's estimated that 43 million adults, Americans, have low literacy skills, and it costs the U.S. $225 billion in lost revenue from low-income jobs or unemployment, from crime, and there is high illiteracy in the incarcerated population. Where do they get help? Our library has an adult literacy program. They also have 40 databases for research. Think how much more they could do with more updated resources. Our state, a recent study showed that 77% of California adults had literacy skills needed for everyday life and work. You're going, well, that's good news. No, we were at the bottom of the 50 states. So we need all the resources that we can get. Why do we care about the numbers? Because we do not live in a bubble. We are not inured to these challenges. We can celebrate Yucaipa's successes while we address our needs. We are a city that values its history while looking forward to an incredible future with the leadership of this group. Last one. We need a library worthy of the 21st century. We need a library, a new library, worthy of Yucaipa. Could I just ask the people who are here to support the library to just raise their hands? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker, I don't know whether Ms. Rao is speaking on behalf of the Board of Supervisors or as a citizen, but it is Supervisor Don Rao of the 3rd District who represents Yucaipa, in addition to many other communities.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I am here tonight speaking on behalf of the county in the 3rd District. When I saw Ray earlier this evening, I asked him if I could provide any updates, and he said, share good news, please, with the council and the citizens. And so I come bearing a little bit of that, and especially for the folks in the audience that support library services. Ray came to the county and asked for our help and partnership. I know you have the school district, the city here, as well as the county, and trying to figure out how we provide effective library services for that next century, and that really will help not only the citizens of Yucaipa, but the unincorporated area as well. So there is a nexus with the county. We want to see it. We want to be a good partner with you, and so we are working collaboratively to make that happen. Through some creativity, I think we're going to be able to do more than we thought we could, so that's the good news. And in other news, I'd like to share that it is Wildwood Creek Basin 4 that my office will help. It's a stormwater project, and while it's not nearly as exciting as library services, it will actually help with the means to the end with that as well. So, Ray, I thank you for the creativity, the ingenuity of us working together to bring some much-needed groundwater preservation and stormwater management at the same time that we look to move projects like the library forward. So that will be my brief update on good news from the county. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Okay, our final speaker is going to be David Couples.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is David Couples. My address is 33870 Plumtree Lane in Yucaipa. I am a 4th-generation Yucaipan, raising my 5th-generation boys in Yucaipa. I love my little town. I left it for a while, went as far as Redlands, and said, nah, coming back to Yucaipa. The library was a big part of my childhood. I absolutely loved our library. I remember waiting for The 7 Chinese Brothers. That was my favorite book as a child. I remember going there and renting VHS tapes for $0.25, renting audiobooks on cassette tapes that you could read along to. Now I take my boys to the library. They love it. They do the same things I used to do. They wait for the books, wait for Spooky Pookie's Halloween to be back in stock. The library is a great place for our town, but it could definitely use an update. I'd like to share, besides my own experiences, just some ideas and thoughts about libraries. Libraries are portals to the world's knowledge. They make sure that knowledge continues to be recorded and saved for the future. As technology changes, I had a massive CD collection. I spent hundreds and probably thousands of dollars as a teen, and CDs went out the window. But libraries, they don't have a need to change as much as technology because they're founded in books. Books are here to last. Books can last thousands of years. Books are a great investment, not just economically, but socially for your society. They're very cost effective because the very principle of it is you have a book that's then shared amongst other people. You only need to buy it once and it can be shared amongst the whole society. They're green for the same reason because these things are shared amongst people. They offer services and products that level the intellectual playing field, meaning that not everyone has access to high-speed internet. Not everyone has access to computers, but libraries give the less fortunate of our society places to go to access these things. That also applies for people that are trying to start their own small business. Libraries offer resources for small business owners, and that boosts up your city's economy. Studies have shown that the presence of libraries not only increase public happiness, but education, as the doctor was talking about, literacy rates, as well as the economy for building those small businesses. So I greatly support funding of the public library. I think Yucaipa's done a great job of building up our community. In my 36 years here, this building wasn't here. I remember I was part of teen court, and I would be in a little prefab trailer at the old city hall. Yucaipa's come a long way, but I would love to see some funding go to our library to raise it up to the level that our town has been brought up to. So thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Couples. If there are no other speakers, we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council members would wish to pull and discuss? None? Do I hear a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on. Mayor and council member business. Anyone has any business or information to report?
Yes, we had our Public Safety Committee meeting last week. I'm pleased to report that the city continues working diligently and collaboratively with our county sheriff's department to place public safety at the highest of our priorities. I'll never stop talking about it. I believe it is the sole purpose of a government is to provide a safe atmosphere for us to live in. The sheriff's department has done absolutely extraordinary things in this city for as long as the city has been incorporated, and even before that. With that being said, however, what I want to focus on is in the last 3 years, every time a problem has arisen or has been brought to the attention of council, our sheriff's department has dived into the problem, invested manpower and creativity towards addressing the problems. And I feel obligated to bring it up because it seems that as public speakers come up here to speak, I can feel the frustration of them just talking to a council that doesn't say anything back. So I want to make sure I relay that the problems that are being brought to the council's attention are absolutely being discussed during public safety committee meetings. We are working collaboratively with the sheriff's department, and as far as I'm concerned, Yucaipa is got our sights securely set on being the safest city in the county. And along with our fire department and the sheriff's department, I think we have a very real possibility of getting there. So I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you. Good report. Anything else?
Oh, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Beaver. I also want to, I believe our sheriff was out here speaking just a little bit ago at Dominique Vaca's memorial service. Not memorial service, what was it? Honor walk service, whatever that is. And he reiterated that Yucaipa is a pro-police department. We really do support our sheriff, and I consider that an honor. I just think that's great, considering what's happening in our country today with all the anti-police and law enforcement attitude. It's unfortunate, but we do not have that here. We are a pro-police, pro-sheriff community. And with that, we're also a pro-business, and I was able to attend the installation dinner that was put on by the Chamber of Commerce, and they did an incredible job. Ellen, perhaps David knows Ellen, did an incredible job. She did a let her know that she really does a lot for our city, and we appreciate her.
Councilmember Thorpe? Yep. I'll relay that information. Thank you very much for those kind words, and thank you for your observations and comments on that. All righty, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 5, the Community Activity Grant Program Guidelines for fiscal year 22-23. And I believe that'll be Ms. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The City Council created the Community Activity Grant back in 2010 to ensure that the projects and programs that benefit the community were funded and to enhance the overall accountability and justification and how the city funds were spent. For the past 12 years, on an annual basis, the Council reviews and amends, if necessary, the guidelines and funding levels for the upcoming grant year, and in this case, it'd be fiscal year 22-23. Since the overall intent of the program is not to sustain local ongoing programs or services, but to supply seed money to support the creation and launch of new programs, services, and events, in fiscal year 2021, Council established a guideline that sets the term limit and percentage reduction for financial awards granted to returning organizations. If Council elects to keep this guideline, the table on page 47 highlights the reduction if if returning organization applies for grants for 22-23 and 23-24. There was an amendment that was handed out. Also, there was an error with the Elks Lodge because they haven't done the hoop shoot in 2 years. If they were to reapply for grant funding in 22-23, they'd get 100% of their grant request. In addition, on February 14th, Council awarded a financial grant in the amount of $9,979.38 to send the Yucaipa High School baseball team to USA Baseball's National High School Tournament. Since only $1,000 was left from the fiscal year 2022 CAG program, the remaining funds were allocated from the fiscal year 21-22 General Fund Contingency Account. At the same meeting, Council directed staff to return to Council to consider a reduced fiscal year 22-23 program funding amount to offset future funding, which is detailed in the report. In addition, staff has reached out to Yucaipa Valley Historical Society to ascertain whether or not they may be supportive of using a portion of the remaining Kramer House fund balance, which is currently $53,298.90, in partnership with the Women's Club in order to complete additional needed improvements to their facility and/or property owner for restoration and preservation of the Casablanca House. So we have not heard back from them, but at least we've reached out for their consideration. There is a recommendation for you this evening is that you review the program guidelines and options and provide direction to staff. And there's an amended recommendation that you provide us direction on the appropriate funding levels for the upcoming grant cycle. Currently, in-kind grant awards is $40,000, and financial grants is $17,500. But if you reduce the amount that was allocated to the Yucaipa High School baseball team, the grant level could be adjusted to $8,520 or any other number as you deem appropriate. This completes my staff report unless you have any questions that you have for me at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff?
No.
No? No questions? Okay, so gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Really, sorry, maybe I do have one. So we're not actually allocating money at this point. We're just reviewing the program itself.
Yep, you're giving me the guidelines that you want me to take when we advertise the grant for fiscal year 22-23.
Well, personally, I think that the way we were doing it was fine. I would like to stay on that same track. And then we already allocated money to the baseball team, correct? So we have $8,900 left? So that would be what we have out there, right?
Well, it's.
I'm okay with that.
So next year then, the funding level available for new grants coming in would be $8,520, that then you would have to review the applications and determine who would get that $8,520.
Right.
With respect to the Kramer Grant, is that money, 53,280, something like that? Is it just for, if the Historical Society uses it, is it just for the Casablanca House, or can they use it at the museum?
It's my impression that they can use it how they deem fit on behalf of the Historical Society needs.
Okay.
My quick conversation with the leadership indicated that they are out to bid with some work at the Mausoleum Museum, but there may be funding left over after that, and so then.
Yeah, I would
perhaps they
like
could
to
make
try to
that
see
available.
we get some funding for the Women's Club. Again, my eyes were opened up, and we really need to do what we can to support them as best we can. You know.
The philanthropy that they do aside, the building itself, and this I think is the nexus that we have towards the Historical Society, is the building itself is right now a point of historic interest, but I believe it is on the cusp of becoming a historic monument, and definitely is deserving of preservation in that regards on a standalone basis, not absent all the work, the fine work that the ladies do there. So I appreciate you reaching out to the Historical Society, and please, when you do speak to them, impress upon them the desire that at least I have, and I think our mayor has, of seeing that historic building become a designated monument.
So based on the decision that we made 2 years ago, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago, that based on the fact that one organization gets funded 1 year, and you can see from our schedule here that that drops off as they've been funded before, that means that the Women's Club can't be funded based on our current program because they've already been funded several times. I think that we ought to reconsider that decision, because eventually all the folks that are on this list here, as they sort of time out, or as they sort of spend out, or whatever you want to call it, eventually if nobody applies and these folks keep applying, we can't fund them based on the decision we made 3 years ago. Is that right?
Well, it's the guidelines that you put in place in 2021 and carried through every year when you review it, but it's completely up to council on how you want to adjust the guideline or keep them the same.
So it could be 50%, looks like, this coming year, right, 22, 23, and then 0% after that, based on those guidelines.
I think we should reconsider that decision we made 2 years ago, or in 2021. I guess it wasn't that long ago we made that decision, but I think that we as a council need to reconsider that decision that we made and just allow them to come forward, and the council decides how much they're going to allocate to each. Because right now, you've got Family Service Association of Redlands. Eventually, they're not going to get any money, and that's such an important work that we can't not. And then Yucaipa Family Assistance, that's also a very important work. And then the Women's Club, that's also a very important work based on what we saw at their 100-year anniversary.
The Kramer Grant is not tied to this, right? Is that separate?
That's separate. It was just informational. I felt as they were moving towards that being designated historical, that it was applicable for that Kramer fund, and that's why I reached out to them.
And so if they are timed out, there's still opportunities, depending on, we don't know how much, but depends on what the Mausoleum Museum doesn't take.
Absolutely.
So we can still move some money towards them.
I'd also like to give notes we attached. It gives you a history of the organizations that have been funded in their totals, just for review purposes also.
Okay, so provide direction.
If I may point out one other thing, Redlands, somebody brought up Redlands FSA. Unfortunately, and you'll see this next meeting, unfortunately, the county didn't review their application, even in the time frame that they looked at the other CDBG applications. But they are recommending that we can go ahead with funding for Redlands FSA because they missed it in their review. And so that will be in front of you next city council meeting, recommendation for funding for Redlands FSA from CDBG funding. And they're going to be allowing the city to use unallocated CDBG funds for that application, again, because it slipped through their review, so.
Okay.
Perhaps there's a opportunity or a way for us to continue on with the process set last year, but with some amended wording that allows for the seeking or the requester to articulate some sort of exigency or why, in this case, the rule should be waived if there is a benefit to us granting the amount requested in spite of this rule, and because we're talking about it, that the example would be the roof of the Women's Club to protect the integrity of the building, to make sure that it can withstand our weather and allow for it to be deemed a historical monument. So some maybe language that can allow for a council waiver should the requester be able to articulate why.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'd rather just go back and do it the way we used to and just eliminate that rule about the 50, 75, and so forth, but I'm not opposed to either one of those.
We actually do that quite often already, right? We make exceptions for groups that are not within Yucaipa. That's part of the rule.
Yeah, we do have a waiver for people seeking funding that don't fit within the parameters. However, in the guidelines right now, the financial applications have a firm deadline. And if the money is depleted, I have been instructed not to return to council for financial grant requests, but that could be a provision that you may want to change based on this discussion.
But that would normally be after the initial round has been allocated. So if they're involved in the initial round, which I assume they would be, then that would be the time that council may wish to waive that 50% requirement.
I think there's also other ways that we can help out the Women's Club. If it's a historical building, they do lots of work. They don't necessarily have to be fixed through the CAG grant, do they? We can help them with other things, can't we?
I think based on how council did this back in 2010, the issue was they got impromptu requests and council was allocating funding, but then they never knew how the program turned out or how the funding was actually used. So then they directed staff to come in with a grant parameter that requires the applicant, if they're awarded the grant, to come back and account for how the monies were spent, because it is allocated through, the general fund. So council kind of wanted that cleanup and that accountability to ensure taxpayer dollars were spent as directed by council. That's why we put the parameters in
But I'm
place.
thinking of things like our facade improvement program. We use our facade improvement program and we allocate funding to people who come in and apply, and it goes through architectural review and so forth. Why couldn't we do that with the Women's Club?
We'd have to update the program itself to allow for that.
And we do that all the time.
Sure,
so.
absolutely. And we also have done some improvements, like ADA improvements, sidewalk improvements pursuant to our pavement management program, or our annual concrete program as well, outside of the community activity grant program.
And the CDBG money could go there also, right? When it comes to sidewalks and so forth.
So
yes,
as it relates to this discussion, particular to item number 5, I agree with everything Councilman Bogue has said, and I think there are other funding sources out there for any manner of project that should come before council and request our assistance. But as it relates to this one, specifically the wording of this rule, as Councilman Duncan pointed out, I think it's my position that the simplest way to continue forward would be keeping the rule as, but adding some language that allows for amendment based on the explanation of the applicant. I think that would be the least intrusive on city staff as well. It'd be, in my mind, a one-liner into the current rule, allowing for somebody to be able to come and basically plead their case, articulate why that rule should not apply. Again, absent the other funding sources for deserving entities within our community. And I guess with that, that would be my motion as providing direction or my direction.
My comment, I think that would be okay, but I think we'll find ourselves allowing the waivers more often than not. So I think Councilmember Duncan does have a point when we should just maybe revisit that and either re-identify the restrictions or eliminate it altogether. Because again, if history says anything, we've been very generous in applying our waivers. So I think we should just,
I think we should revert back to where we were and try to abandon that decision we made. But are we opposed to restoring the monies to the, are we opposed to option B by restoring the money back to the levels that we had initially? This is an important program to a lot of the nonprofits in Yucaipa, and they get a lot of edification out of it. They feel good about what the city is doing if they can come to the city and ask for help with their nonprofit. Are we opposed to restoring that back to 17? Or are we locked into just leaving that baseball scholarship money out there?
and that's what we need to discuss.
Well, I know I keep reverting back to the women's club, but my issue with that is that every time we go through this CAG grant, I mean, we're talking about allocating, what, maybe $3,500, sometimes $5,000, where we do facade improvement programs. We can allocate, we have, what, $50,000 in the facade?
I think the
Or
current
maybe
balance
30.
is
I don't know what the
somewhere
number is.
around there.
But it's larger. What we're doing with the women's club is we're allotting these 3,000 every year. And why don't we just get it fixed through a facade improvement program or something of that nature? Why are we just doing it a little at a time?
But doesn't that require them to match the funds? If the facade improvement program, if they want $20,000 or $10,000, don't they have to match that with their own funding?
So there are two different programs. There's the commercial facade improvement program, and then there's the residential facade improvement program. They're both a little different, but again, you're going to be waiving that requirement with either program. You can certainly decide to waive the local match as well.
I'm just thinking, I know the facade improvement program has not been utilized to, has it?
It's been utilized by the commercial, on the commercial side. We've only had one taker on the residential side so far, you're right.
Okay. I'm fine with, I understand what they're trying to do. It just seems like that's more a really short year-by-year $3,000. To me, just get it fixed. Why don't we find another way of doing it? So,
I think I agree with you on that basis, and for the benefit of the audience and whoever's listening, I would also submit that there are so many stakeholders involved in the preservation and the protection of the women's club. Yucaipa, by virtue of it being Yucaipa Women's Club, I think we have a responsibility to help protect it. With that being said, however, there is no Calamesa's Women's Club. Calamasa residents come, County of Riverside residents come to Yucaipa to help out our community and be part of the Yucaipa Women's Club. Our unincorporated areas, Oakland, Forest Falls, Angeles Oaks, Mentone, to say some, they come to Yucaipa because there isn't an entity in their area. So I believe there are several entities that have a stake in protecting that building, and perhaps staff can reach, as it relates to the Women's Club, I know we're kind of getting off item number 5, but as it relates to the Women's Club, perhaps staff can reach out to Riverside's County Supervisor, Calamasa City Council, counties, museums, and anybody who has an interest in preserving this historical monument, or soon to be, in my mind, historical monument, and this building in our city that truly does deserve to be protected. That could also be a way that we can basically the flagship of leading this collective rally behind protecting that women's club. And then I also, to Councilman Duncan's, I agree. If we can go back to the way it was and take it on a case-by-case basis, if there's one thing to be said about staff reports is they are very detailed. I refuse to believe that we're going to miss something or overlook that somebody has already had grants, and we can make the decisions on a case-by-case basis as we get the requests for these CAG requests.
So we're looking at then eliminating or discussing the elimination of the current guidelines and hearing about updating and amending the facade program and then reaching out to other political entities to help the stakeholders who are from the different communities that come to the Yucaipa's Women's Club to help fund. So some of that part really is borne on the Women's Club themselves. I don't think we should necessarily be the lead in reaching out to all these other communities. We can partner with them and help them, but they gotta put a little skin in the game too. With respect to the options, I heard Councilmember Duncan said he'd like option B to keep the current guidelines process in place and amend the funding levels. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was looking at the funding levels by restoring back the money we gave to the Little League, which I thought was a fantastic work. But going back to the $17,000 for the funding on that whole program to make sure that our nonprofits get a fair shake. Because as I said, that's very edifying for all the different folks that come before us and try to get funding. It's a very good program.
I'm okay with that.
Are we okay with that?
Well, the one bullet point you're talking about is listed on page 46. It's the second bullet on the top, at the top of the page. Instead of getting rid of all the guidelines, maybe you just want us to eliminate that one provision under the requirements of funding limitations.
I'm fine with that.
Sorry, Jennifer.
Page
46?
number 47, it's second bullet point at the top, or it's the sixth bullet point down from starting on page 46. Beginning with fiscal year 2021, grant cycle financial grant awarded funds will be reduced each year for a returning applicant that has been awarded financial support in the previous years by the following percentage. First year 100, second year 75% funded, and third year 50% funded, and then 0% thereafter.
Thank you.
And we want to eliminate that.
I certainly do.
I support that.
Looks like we have concurrence.
By chance, can I get a motion and a vote?
Is that I thought this was just to provide
No,
direction as opposed to a vote.
No, this is a department report. I'm seeking your direction so that when we fly the application, we know what to tell the applicants on what the provisions are established by council tonight.
Okay, who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and restore the funding that we had given to the Little League back to the program, and that we eliminate that bullet point beginning with the fiscal year 2021, the percentages, get rid of that. Does that make sense?
And I can second that.
Now, do we need to cover amending the facade program?
No, that's not on the agenda, and
It's not
you
an
may have
agenda
covered
item.
it already by increasing the amount and eliminating the percentages, I'm not sure. And I hadn't mentioned this, but once they're a designated historical building, there are opportunities to go after grant funding for preservation. So we'll work with them on that front too. But if council wishes, we can come back to you with the facade improvement program as well.
And just real quick.
No, I was only looking for alternatives to not changing the program and then actually fixing this instead of doing this year by, I mean, it seems like we've been doing it over and over. And I know it's getting improved, but I mean,
It's always different things.
Yeah,
yes.
let's just get it fixed, so.
But if we have,
With that, I also want to know if, since we're on that subject, if there are any county, I know we have a county representative here, opportunities for improving that historical site, maybe. I'm just going to put that bug in the
we'll reach
ear
out.
of a supervisor who's sitting out in the audience.
That's what
Okay,
you get
Don,
for
no.
sticking around.
And just as a point of clarification, it was the high school's baseball team, correct? That we not the Little League? Just,
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
It was our high school, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, high school.
okay, any further discussion on the issue?
We had a motion in a second.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
If there are no further discussions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, it goes. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 6.
And just for the record, I have no information on pending legislation either this evening.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. Item number 6 is a resolution number 2022-13, termination of local emergency for COVID-19 and proclaim a local emergency for the emergency medical services system. This is an item that echoes the San Bernardino County's recent action relative to COVID-19, wherein the overall declaration for COVID-19 emergency has been terminated, but that the recommendation was made to the board for impacts on the worldwide novel coronavirus pandemic on the emergency medical services system was established, a declaration relative to that. The reason for that is there has been an impact on emergency medical services. Certainly that is continuing, both in terms of hospital impacts, transportation services to the hospital, emergency transportation services to the hospital, and even fire and paramedic services in local communities. And so for those reasons and for the reason of continuing to be able to avail ourselves through the county of resources relative to those emergency medical services, staff is recommending that we establish the declaration for emergency medical services and would come back to you in a 14-day period to continue that emergency declaration as needed. I expect it will continue for a bit of time as emergency services try to catch up with the impacts of COVID over time. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ray. Any questions of staff? Any comments?
So I was speaking with CAL FIRE the other day, and they said that they had to accompany, there was an accident, and it was a pretty tragic accident, and they had to accompany to the hospital. Is that something that happens a lot with our paramedic services, where does AMR respond and then CAL FIRE also go, or does AMR go with them, or how does that work exactly?
So there is, and the Public Safety Committee may want to weigh in on this as well. There have been a series of conversations, including AMR leadership with those folks, and then they also presented to the Public Safety Committee. They've established some emergency protocols through the COVID-19 pandemic that are new, and one of those is if they don't have an ALS ambulance available in an appropriate time frame, they send a BLS ambulance, and under certain circumstances, and a paramedic that is providing emergency services may have to transport with the BLS ambulance to the hospital. Certainly our fire chief can give you a more detailed answer, but that's the bottom line. Under that scenario, they've also deployed at times ALS ambulances in nearby communities to provide backup for ALS here in Yucaipa, where we don't have the response time that is appropriate for that particular event. And so they had done that a series of times as well. There are some communities, we talked about it here, that have implemented kind of a hybrid system for their own paramedics to transport with a medic squad. Wasn't the direction that was preferred, but we have talked about that option as well here at Council. And so that system of, I call it, I guess, tools in the toolbox to respond to folks was precipitated by ALS ambulance response times well in excess of what was appropriate. And so those are some of the tools that they have implemented in this time frame. They've also tried to have accelerated folks in the paramedic school systems, training systems. They brought in travel paramedics from other communities, from other states even. And so they have implemented a number of different measures, including the BLS ambulance that requires a paramedic on board to help with the transport. They've done some things at the hospital too. One of the biggest issues is bed delays, where we've got folks that can't be dropped off because the hospital can't accept them in a timely manner. They're understaffed as well. So they've done some things to partner with hospitals to try to mitigate that, bringing in their own paramedics to work the entrance at the hospital so that they can bring our paramedic back or their own ambulance, ALS ambulance team return to operations. So that is one of the problems, one of the challenges that we have had, and one of the solutions, I guess, to the challenge has been a BLS ambulance. Perhaps the Public Safety Committee would want to add to that.
So, again, and I know my previous announcements focused mostly on law enforcement, but we have been working collaboratively with our fire department to find creative ways to address this patient offload time delay at the hospital and ambulance response times. It is a work in progress, but I believe all stakeholders have recognized that there's an issue and are willing to make accommodations to address it appropriately. Public safety doesn't just involve crime, but also is our emergency medical and traffic and everything that comes out of public safety. And I think we are all on board with fixing that. At the risk of publicly declaring that Los Angeles County did something efficient, I will say that they have addressed this problem, I think, more efficiently than we have even. Care Ambulance, I think, is the primary ambulance provider for Los Angeles County, or most of Los Angeles County. And the County Board of Supervisors have now directed Care Ambulance to respond within the designated time frame or find an accredited ambulance service that will. As a result, we're seeing 3 or 4 different ambulance services arriving on calls for service to transport people. The delays are not there anymore, and we're seeing quick response times. So perhaps continued outside-the-box thinking and more collaboration is in order, but I think we are getting there. We've made strides forward in the last year from where we were during, I'd say, the deep parts of the pandemic and the dark parts of the pandemic, where we're making progress. This is a step in the right direction, I believe. Specifically, part of the proclamation where this is going to be forwarded to the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, that might now offer some more resources to our city should we find that a squad is in our best interest. And maybe that is now something that's within grasp for state assistance and for funding. I submit that should we need to transport a patient, and our paramedics, our CAL FIRE heroes out there are the only emergency medical personnel on scene, we shouldn't be hindered by the fact that there are other things happening. This Yucaipa should be a standalone city and put public safety at the forefront of everything we do, to include ensuring we have all resources at our disposal to transport our citizens and our visitors to the hospital in a timely manner. We shouldn't have to rely on other resources, and certainly if those other resources are busy because of everything else going on, we should have countermeasures in place to mitigate that. So I support this. This is great. I think the wording is on point, and I think it potentially gives us more access to resources.
All right, anybody else?
Was that your motion?
It was my motion.
I'll second.
And that's as amended, the amended language.
Yes, sir, with the amended language.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion on the item? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 7, and I believe it's Mr. Casey again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item is review and approval of a tree planting event at Five Winds Ranch to celebrate and honor Arbor Day. And it also accompanies our application for being named Tree City as well, Tree City, USA. And so we've made that application this year. We'll find out officially tomorrow, but at least informally, it looks like we may be successful. So this won't be anything like our Make a Difference Day events in terms of magnitude, but you've seen certainly this concept plan over and over again. And with respect to our Make a Difference Day efforts, this will be a smaller event. We'll reach out to some of our same partners, but remind them that it's a smaller event, just 25 or 30 trees. We have a little bit of irrigation to do, but for the most part, the irrigation is in place that would serve this request. The plan is to plant some smaller trees this time. They're cottonwoods, so they'll grow fast. They'll use a little water, so they'll be near the meandering stream, the dry stream, but that dry stream will carry water quite often and irrigation, of course, the rest of the year. It is a program that we have talked about over the years. We're excited to participate in Arbor Day for the first time this year and participate hopefully in the Tree City USA program. So we're excited about the opportunity. Over the years, we've planted literally thousands of trees in the community and should be recognized for that. So here's our opportunity, we believe. The fiscal impact is estimated cost of $2,350 to acquire the 35-gallon trees. And if approved, we'll reach out. If approved, we'll reach out to our, again, our normal partners for Make a Difference Day. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
I'll move approval.
You have a motion?
I'll second his motion.
We have a first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, sir. Moving on to item number 8, City of Yucaipa 4th of July fireworks show with Mary Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The annual 4th of July celebration and fireworks show will take place at Yucaipa High School on Monday, July 4th from 5 to 9 p.m. Gates will open at 5 o'clock p.m. for parking on school grounds, in which we will charge a $10 fee per car to help us offset the costs of the event. As soon as event goers enter, they can grab a spot for the concert, visit food and merchandise vendors, and or partake in free activities that we will provide, including cornhole, giant Jenga, and more. City staff will work with the Yucaipa Chamber of Commerce to secure about 3 or 4 food vendors and 10 to 15 merchandise vendors for the event. A free concert will take place on the stage from 6:45 to 8:45 p.m. featuring a country cover artist. At 9 o'clock p.m., the fireworks will begin, coinciding with music that will be broadcasted on COLA 99.9. On the screen above me, you will see this year's proposed layout, whereas the main event will take place in the grass fields on the southeast side of the school. You'll see that the main stage has been moved to face south due to some feedback that we had from the crowd last year and the event goers with the sun in their eyes. Staff are seeking approval for the closure of Chapman Heights Road west of 10th Street and east of 13th Street, and the closure of Gold Mountain Road north of Chapman Heights Road from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. City staff will continue to meet with the Yucaipa Chamber and the school district, as well as Yucaipa Police and Fire, our Public Works Department, to address specific conditions of the event. And we will also be reaching out to BMX, Yucaipa BMX, and the Church of Latter-day Saints to help with our event cleanup the day after. Revenues received from vendors and parking are estimated to be about $10,000, and expenditures are estimated to be about $46,000, which includes the amount of $37,145 for the fireworks show. And these amounts will be budgeted in the fiscal year 2022-2023 draft budget to be submitted to council at a later date. And I can answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions of staff? And this is up, 37,000 is up from what, 27,000 the last time we had it? Is that what?
Last year was about 35.
35?
145.
Okay. All right, should be a good show.
It always is. It's always a great event. All I can say is more restrooms.
We definitely will have more restrooms than last year.
All right. With that, I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 9, professional services agreement with Props AV, and that'll be with Megan Wolf.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm here this evening to ask City Council to authorize the City Manager to execute an amended agreement for professional services with Props AV to provide production services at the Yucaipa Performing Arts Center and Yucaipa Special Events. The amendments are from a 1-year to a 2-year contract and for a not to exceed amount of $350,000. And that council waive the formal solicitation of proposals in accordance with the City of Yucaipa Municipal Code Section 2.24.150C1 and Ordinance Number 42. On July 1st, 2022, the city entered into an agreement with Props AV to provide production services for special events and the Yucaipa Performing Arts Center. Props provided production for concerts in the park, Autumn Fest, Winter Fest, several rentals at the Performing Arts Center, the outdoor shows at the Performing Arts Center, as well as indoor shows at the Performing Arts Center. This agreement has now reached the maximum purchasing authority of the city manager of $50,000, and that therefore staff is recommending the amendment. The additional $300,000 would include providing production for the 2022 special events, which are concerts in the park, Autumn Fest, Winter Fest, and those events normally see about a 30% cost recovery. In addition, they will provide production services for YPAC rentals, which those costs are pass-through costs onto the client of 100% cost recovery. YPAC ticketed events, which to date have an 85% cost recovery, and YPAC free events, such as open mic night, which have a 0% cost recovery, but provide the community the ability to look and take part in their building. It is estimated, the estimated expenditures are in the amount of $175,000 for both pass-through and city events are included in the fiscal year 21-22 budget, and the amount of $175,000 will be included in the fiscal year 22-23 draft budget to be submitted to City Council at a later date. An amended item was distributed this evening, and that concludes my report. I can answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, staff?
I don't have any questions, but I would make a motion to support it as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Really quick, you said, so all the YPAC events have an 80% recovery rate?
To date,
Okay.
the ticketed events have an 85% cost recovery
Okay.
rate, and that's for this fiscal year.
And all of our rentals are 100%?
That is correct.
But all of our music and arts festival and Autumn Fest obviously are 0 because we don't charge anyone.
That is correct.
And what else? There was something that was
Open mic night, which was some feedback we heard from the community. We want to be able to use this building. And so we did, council did approve an open mic night once a month at the Performing Arts Center, and that has a 0% cost recovery.
Okay.
Weren't there tickets sold, like VIP tickets sold last year for the Music and Arts Festival for low cash and then their replacement Thompson Square? So we did see some type of cost recovery, even though it's not. We do see some cost recovery on our like Music and Arts Festival because we do sell some tickets, but by and large, it's a free event.
So that is correct. Music and Arts Festival saw a cost recovery, and our special events, Music and Arts, Autumn Fest, and Winter Fest, have an average of about 30% cost recovery at this time.
Okay.
This agreement.
That includes everything, but that includes everything.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Kids zone, VIP ticket sales, food vendor, alcohol percentage share, that includes all the revenue sources.
Understood. Okay.
I just want to clarify that the Music and Arts Festival production is not included in this. It's only the smaller events, Autumn Fest, Winter Fest, concerts in the park, and YPAC rentals and YPAC
What about
events.
Kick the Dust Up? Will they be participating in that one, or is that that's gonna be a large event? It's gonna be big.
Yeah, we want lasers. We want.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
So we have a motion to approve. Did I hear a second?
I'll second it, but I also want to let you guys know that Props AV is also an incredible company. They do a great job. That's with my second.
All righty. So we have a first and a second and a compliment, or an endorsement, I suppose. If there's no
Never
further
heard that before,
discussion-
have you?
Second with the compliment.
Oh, as amended, thank
yeah.
you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes carry it. Thank you very much. All right, item number 10. It'll be Department Reorganization with Ray Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Sad to report, and some of you have already seen it on social media. The whole community is sad that we're losing one of our team members, Sherry O'Connell, to a retirement. Congratulations to her, but it does create a hole for us. Sherry, unfortunately, because of personal reasons, had to go to part-time here in the last number of months, or you may have seen this change sooner if I had thought she was going to be sticking around for a while. But she's having other opportunities in her retirement. We may see her around here still, but she is retiring. So we took the opportunity some time ago, I guess, to look at the industry standards for that position. And certainly, like any position, there are some variables, some variants and some variables, but we looked at a number of cities, and it's attached to your staff report, the results of that research, that review. And we've arrived at what we think is kind of an average or a median salary range, probably the closest to the city of Loma Linda. And this is all on page 205, 206 of your staff report. And you'll see some of the footnotes indicate that there are several positions, the lower position also included in some cases, and the higher level position. Some of the cities have a number of positions in emergency services. Of course, we have one, Loma Linda has one, and others on the list do as well. So staff's recommendation, and Sherry will be leaving us later this month. Staff's recommendation is to approve the reorganization of the department, and it's basically the one position, upgrading the emergency services coordinator, community liaison position as described in your staff report. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. I would just like to echo Ray's comments. We're going to miss Sherry O'Connell. She's been such an integral part with the different emergency services, especially the CERT program. Takes a lot of effort to make that work and maintain. And she's a good friend of mine, and I am going to miss her professionally. With that, we have a first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're moving on to announcements. Are there any announcements to make from the city council dais?
Just remember our rodeo. I'd like to give a shout out to J.R. Allgauer. He's over there just about every night welding something, and I'm not even sure he knows how to weld, but he's welding something over there just about every night, working real hard to make sure it happens on time.
Well, at least it's not super glue. Anything? Mr. Thorpe?
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem? Thank you. We did have a commemoration this afternoon at 5 o'clock. One of our heroes. And my thoughts and prayers always go out to the families. Enough of that. So with that, Mr. Attorney, are there any things you wish to announce for the closed session?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we've got one item this evening for closed session. It's existing litigation, San Bernardino County Superior Case Number CIV SB 2116577, Grayland and Duff versus the City of Yucaipa, and we do not expect reportable action this evening.
Thank you. I'd like to go ahead and close the public session in memory of Deputy Sergeant, Dominic Baca. We'll move on to closed session.